Yeah. Okay. Do we have any folks from Finding Mastery here? Oh, we do. Good. We're amongst friends. Okay, good. Okay, so sports psychology is hard. And I want to tell a story where it's an alpha competitive environment, it's a locker room environment, and I'm standing kind of in the back of the room. And there's a group of athletes huddled here. We're about to go play. There's a group of athletes over in the other section, and then a kind of third huddle of athletes. And it's intense. And I hear the vibe is right? And I hear the music and everything's working, and then all of a sudden I feel tense. And I walk past this first group, and all I could hear is a big game now. It's a must-win game. There's a lot of people that are counting on me. I got to get this thing right. I can't let my family down. I don't want to just screw it up. And I say, oh my God, what am I hearing? I go past the next group, and I hear the same thing. Must-win game. Don't screw it up. Family's counting on me. We got to get this thing right. Just don't blow it. And I find myself kind of in the middle of the room, and an athlete walks over to me, and he puts his arm around me, and he says, hey, Gervais, you're going to be okay now. It almost worked, didn't it? Did that joke almost work? No? Okay, so listen, this is what I want to talk to you about. I want to make sure first that I thank the folks in this room for your attention. And my hope is that we go somewhere in the next 45 minutes. Oops, a little advanced here. That we go somewhere. And I want to make sure that I take a moment to also thank Scott Goldman, to thank Tracy Statler, and the e-board for creating the space for us to do this and have this conversation. I feel humbled and honored to be able to stand in front of you and share some things that are important for me to share. And I also want to make sure that I take a moment to thank the incredible researchers in this room and those that are not with us today. Because it's your work that allows me to stand on your shoulders, and it's your research that allows us to inform the decisions that we make in the amphitheater and with people. So I want to say thank you for the incredible research that you're providing for us to be able to do important and meaningful work. And I also want to make sure that I just take a moment, and it's been a long time coming for me to be able to do this with you. And when I think back, it started my high school year, and my parents pulled me aside, and they said, hey, Mike, we tried. And they said, listen, it's now time for you to either get a job and move out or go to community college. I got a 0 on my PSAT and a 0 on my SAT. I was surfing for both of them. And they looked at me like, wait a minute, you really thought you were going to keep surfing for the rest of your life and just live at home? I mean, that is kind of a loser, right? And that's where I started. And then to be here today, to stand in front of the brightest minds in applied sports psychology, I'm grateful and honored, and I just want to say thank you for inviting me into your space here today. So thank you for that. I also want to take a moment and make sure that we level set. And the hope is that in this next 45 minutes, that we embrace that we are custodians. We are incredible custodians of practices and insights. And these practices and insights that we hold and understand can unleash potential in people when even that potential is lying dormant. And as custodians, it's a very important position that we have in their lives. And I want to back into that and say, our position in the lives of people that we are working with is significant to them. And if we're not grounded in good science, I don't know what we're doing in the field. And if we're not careful, we're going to find ourselves right in the middle of this sloganism thing that is taking place. And so science is the information that grounds us to be able to be custodians of incredible practices. And as we become custodians, as we move through the paces with them, they're in it now. And we're asking them to be great. You know what I think? I think we need to do the same. I think we play it safe. I think we hide behind some conversations that we're not actually living in the same way that they're living. And what is it about our mechanism, our community, our structure that allows us to play it safe? Is it that we chose this field because of that? Or is it because we found ourselves that that's more comfortable? And I'm not suggesting that there's any conversation here about confidentiality and privilege and the rights and the dignity of the relationship and the sanctuary that we hold space with the men and women we work with. But this is a moment as custodians of the insights and practices and the science. Our science that we hold has the potential to make significant and substantial qualitative change in people's lives. And if we're not understanding it, we can't really help. And there's something happening in our community, as many of you would recognize, that we have tension. We haven't quite sorted out who we are. We haven't quite sorted out the two main disciplines in our field. And if we can't get our stuff together, then we run into some troubles. And my experience in applied sports psychology is that our customers don't know what we do. We have to teach them. And to do that, we have to do some work. And it's been a difficult time for, I think, people that came before me in this field, that they blazed a trail that I get to walk through, and many of you are walking through as well. And we got to get our shit together. And nobody else can do it but us. As custodians of this information and the science, we owe it to ourselves and we owe it to our community to take the next step. And if we go way upstream, and if we go as far upstream as we possibly can, our purpose, our collective purpose, is to help others. And to do that right requires a heavy lift, a significant lift. And that lift is not for money and fame and recognition. That's not what this is about. This is about advancing and enhancing and potentially even reimagining what it means to be a human in modern times. We spent our whole lives trying to sort this out. At some point in your career, maybe you're there now, but at some point in your career, you will be as skilled as the men and women that you work with. Maybe at some point, you will be more skilled in your craft than they are in their craft. How about it? And just because we understand some stuff doesn't mean that the skill transfers to the quality of life that we live. And I think that you would recognize that one of the most significant things that we can do is show up and be grounded and hold the reservoir. Hold that reservoir so that they can explore. And that exploration is a significant piece of work for all of us to explore and to hold the reservoir so that they can do it as well. And my hope in our conversation today is that we'll get to a place, when I say we'll go somewhere, that will provide, in this 45 minutes, a way for you to explore as well. Now, we are in this incredible intersection between science that's allowing us to better understand this very complicated, nuanced 3.2 pounds of tissue that sits in our skull and how it interfaces with thoughts and back into the body. It's incredible where we are, and we still don't know much. But it's a very incredible time for science. It's also, we're at the intersection where the extraordinary men and women, some of the most courageous in the world, are raising their hand and they're saying, I want to invest in the inner life. The psychology of my life is important. We're right there. We are right there at the place to capture this because these extraordinary men and women, some of the most brave in the planet, are recognizing that there's only three things that we can train as humans. We can train our craft, we can train our body, and we can train our mind. That's it. And the most extraordinary are not leaving one of those three up to chance. And in my time in this field, I haven't met, and this is going to sound dramatic, I tend to be dramatic, I have not met yet a coach or an athlete that has not nodded their head to, is the mental part of the game important? They go, yeah. We're at a great intersection between science, between the extraordinaries raising their hand, and technology. Technology to deepen our understandings, and then technology to also broaden our reach. It's a very exciting time. And I want to double down to make sure that we are honoring the work that we need to do as well. And that will be some of this conversation today. So the path ahead for us will really be about sharing some insights that I've come to learn. And these insights are mine. They might not serve you. But I want to share them from the most grounded, authentic place that I know how to anchor from. Because these insights are not easy to come by. And they've been hard. And this community has provided much for me. This community has provided much. It's provided incredible support, scar tissue, and friendship. And so with the combination of those, nobody does this alone. In life, nobody does it alone. It's too hard. It's too complicated. We need each other to be great. They need us to be great. Your family needs you to be great. And in that same vein, we need to support each other. How about it? If you have a problem with somebody that is doing good work, talk to them. Because maybe there's something that they want to learn too. If you have a challenge with people that are doing work in the field, that they're rubbing against the boundaries of their competencies, talk to them. Help a brother out. Help your sister out. We need each other to be great as ambassadors of flourishing. So what I want to share with you today is 3 points, really. And it's about a map, about a mission, and mastery. And the map, I have a map. And it's a personal map that I'd like to share with you. And it's informed my mission in life. And in that mission, I want to make sure that we just pause for a moment on the mission piece and say, you know, if we don't have a mission, what are we doing? And that mission piece it's just, for me, it's the things that I think about all the time. And I want to share them with you in a way that I'm stoked about it. Maybe you'll be stoked about it. Maybe you can take some of those gems or insights, if there are any, and do something in your career and in your craft. Or maybe we can do something together. And so when I was asked to share some insights about my practice and my craft and the business development that I'm working to better understand, I want to make sure that we walk through this storyline to make sense of it, to give context. Early days in my life, I grew up on a farm. No streetlights. Running water was a little bit of luxury during the winter. And my parents allowed me to explore. And so Mother Nature became the teacher. And Mother Nature is swift, it's inconsistent, and it is right. And so my teachers were the natural consequences of mistake making. And I never quite fit in traditional stick and ball sport. And the reason I didn't fit in stick and ball sport is because there was this human that was providing teaching. But it never felt really right for me as a kid because it felt artificial. So the truth-seeking started early for me, and consequences that were real and true is something that was part of my DNA at a young age. But I share that with you for one reason, is that my approach in my craft is about discovery as well. And there's no doubt of why I was attracted to the university that I went to, because it was based in Rogerian therapy. Carl Rogers, one of the great humanists, is about non-regard, loving other people. They own the answers, just create the space for them to figure it out. It was also influenced by CBT, and it was also influenced by mindfulness. And I want to share the story of how I learned mindfulness some 20-some years ago, is that one of my professors, Dr. Walter Rutherford, started class every day, said, hey, just put your butt in the back of the seat and put your feet on the ground. We're starting class in our PhD program. And then he would just have us breathe. And he'd say, hey, listen, we got a lot of work to do. There's just in a couple minutes, and just kind of get connected to your body. I didn't know what that was. 20 years, I had no idea what that was. But he was getting us to meditate for 6 minutes at the beginning of every class. Game changer for me. Complete. And I was a contrarian, like, what are we doing when I finally figured it out? Game changer. So I get my undergraduate in psychology, master's degree in kinesiology, and that quite didn't do it for me. And I want to tell you why that is. I started in a master's degree in psychology at Pepperdine University, and I dropped out. And my parents looked at me like, oh, shit, we thought we had one. You know, like, I'm the first person to go to school in my family, like to college. And they're really geared up for it. But it was no chance that that was the right timing and the right place for me to be, to study what felt like to me the brokenness of the human spirit. And so I got a part-time temporary job, 20 hours a week for 3 weeks. And I realized that they were sitting on a pile of money from a government agency, and it was for crime prevention. And so I went to the director, and I say to the director, hey, if I came up with a program, would you be able to fund it? And I say, yeah, kid, like, if you got something, let us know. And so I had this idea that why don't we pull together some of the local high school kids, the captains, and then, so there's volunteer base, and then let's go get some money and open up a gym. Basic idea. In Los Angeles, there's a scarcity of gyms. And let's do it on Saturday nights when we're partying. And let's just make it open gym. The only price to admission is that you had to listen to me for 7 minutes. And I was going to figure out what I was going to say almost every night. I had an undergraduate degree in psychology, and so I knew very little. And at the same time, so this thing starts. The first night, 130 people show up. That's amazing, right? And I'm talking about the bottoms of Los Angeles, a very tough, gang-involved, there's so much I want to say about this, but a very hard, challenging group of young men showed up almost every night, about 100 people every night. I did that for 18 years. Every Saturday night, I was in a sweaty hot box with 100 men from the bottom of Los Angeles working shit out. And what we were doing in there, I was one chapter ahead. I started my master's degree, so now I'm starting to know a little bit more. And I'm literally, this is my work shed. For 18 years, I didn't go to a bar. I didn't go to a party. My wife was like, what are we doing with our lives? And it was, but I was working it out. So what I got was, for 18 years, I got 7 minutes, maybe 8 if I could be compelling, to 100 and some young men that did not want to hear from me. They wanted to play above the rim. But we did it for 18 years. So you need a work shed. You need a place that you can go work it out, where you can take great science. You can't make this up, though. You can't just have an inspired idea, throw it up on Instagram, and say, hey, I got some ideas, too. It doesn't work like that. If it's not anchored in good science, you're hurting people. So you look good. That's not okay. That's not what we're doing. And I'm only talking to 2 of you in here, right? You know who you are. So do we. Okay. So listen, so that ends up happening. So what does that give me? I'm still surfing and figuring out consequential environments, and I'm understanding now this stick and ball world, and I'm understanding how to get my stuff together to say it in 7 minutes or less. Then I find myself, I'm attracted to consequential environments. So I get to corner 3 fights in the UFC. Amazing experience. There's the cut man, there's me, and the head coach and the athlete. Amazing. And it was on, pay-per-view, and it's a very small, intimate group, and and we're walking out. It's the coach, like I said, myself, and the cut man and the athlete, and he's walking up, and it's like a very large production, 17,000 people, and the athlete's got his walk-on music, and we're walking in, and what am I supposed to do, right? And so I'm walking in behind the athlete. That's what they want us to do, and so there's a place that I'm supposed to navigate and get to behind the cage, and I get off of that event. It's a great win. The athlete that I work with was heavily tested. It's an amazing celebration of human expression. I get off of that experience. I check my phone. My mentor, one of them, in this field, sends me a text and says, hey, Gervais, get your ass off the TV. That's not cool. Imagine what that does. I'm trying to do the best work of my life. I'm not trying to find a television. But it just so happens that when you're doing work in public places, there's the celebration of the young man or woman. So imagine that. Imagine what that does. And so I got to block that out because this athlete wants to do it again. So then I find myself being able to be on dropped in on the USS Truman to work with fighter pilots and heads of departments on psychological skills. Somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic, as they were heading over to the Middle East, they wouldn't tell us where it was, and it was an amazing experience, got shot off. I got to work with big wave surfers. I grew up as a surfer. I get to work with the most talented people, people jumping out of space, people that are being able to create an event where he jumps from 30,000 feet, this is Luke Aikens, into a 16-story net that he built without a parachute. Absolutely incredible command of craft, body, and mind. Find myself at the sidelines of the Seattle Seahawks, loving the challenge of being able to work inside of a large organization. Fortunate enough to spend time at the Olympics in London. Incredible experience for me. We win a Super Bowl. We lose a Super Bowl. We build skimming over that, no, those are both really important. Coach Carroll and I build a business together on the backs of what we have come to understand. His genius amongst many is that he knows how to create an ecosystem for people to do their very best work. You layer on top of that people that are hungry and want to do their very best work in this open ecosystem, and then you add and amplify the psychological skills training. 1 + 1 = something far greater. He comes out of his office one day full of great energy, and he says, "Hey, Mike, can you feel what's happening?" And I say, "Yeah, it's amazing. We've got 100 and some alpha competitors with their noses pointed in the same direction." And he pauses and he looks at me and he says, "Do you think anyone outside of sport would be interested in what we're doing?" Half beat goes by and he says, "Let's write it down." Back of a napkin, we're writing down what his 40 years, my 20 years in the field. We sketch it out. We have a conversation with the CEO of Microsoft. He goes, "Oh, this is great. Let's incubate." So we start with 12 people. It turns to 25. Over the X number of years, we're at 40,000 people now at 8 hours a person at Microsoft and AT&T. And we're like, how does that happen? Because people want what we understand. We are custodians of very important science and applications and insights. The time is right, and it's right now. First, you need a base. So do I. Grounded in science and grounded in a reservoir where you can be you across any environment, in any circumstance, under any condition. Takes heavy lifting. Fortunate enough to go to Rio. Karch will be with you tomorrow. Incredible 4 years with that man and that team. And I can't wait to see how he expresses his insights. We fire up Finding Mastery. We've got over 15 million views. How does that happen? People want it. They want to understand. It's just like you and I. Just like the two, we want the same thing. We want to learn. And we want to learn how to do it in a way that matters. And then to be here with you today. So that's the journey. That's the path. That has no value to you. There are no answers there. I like it. It's been fun. It's been meaningful to me. But it's all based on very specific circumstances and conditions and choices, family dynamics, genetic coding. It's based on a bunch of random stuff that comes together, trying to make the best of it as I go, and the same with the people around me. However, I think that the next handful of moments together, that the idea is, can you create your map? Feels a little like this. So the path ahead, what do people want? What do we want? When it feels all over the shop, where the map is so unclear, what do we want? We search for hacks and shortcuts and listicles and the secrets. And there are no hacks, secrets, tips, tricks. There are none, especially in this game of mastery, especially when it comes to performing well and flourishing. There aren't any. You would recognize that you wouldn't want your surgeon to be a hack, your tattoo artist to be a hack, correct? We don't have any hacks. There are no shortcuts or tricks. I cannot unlock something in 45 minutes for you. This is about the heavy lifting, doing the difficult, lonely work to understand and explore and discover. And that's what this work is really about for all of us to do. And social media is changing the game for us. And as custodians of real information based in science and grounded theories, we owe it to our customers and ourselves to know that science forward and backward, to add to the science, to thank the scientists in the room. Those of us in the applied field, we don't have anywhere to go without good science. So in this internal map, I shared with you the observed map. This internal map is really about asking the hard questions in life. Who am I? What am I doing with my life? What is my philosophy? What is my mission? How do I want to live? How do I want to die at the moment of death? Asking yourself those hard questions and exploring them is the real work. That is your map. There is nowhere else to go. How do you do that work, though? There's 3 ways that I've come to find to be incredibly valuable. One is mindfulness work. And that's about listening, correct? It's about following without judgment and critique and listening. The second is to write. And the third is to be around wise men and women. If you know a wise man or woman and they have invited you into their world, they are rare. Honor that. Those 3 practices are the mechanism for the internal work, but of course it starts with you wanting to do the work. How many of you in this room, you want to have an extraordinary life? You want to slide into home base, a couple scars, you're beaten up a little bit, you feel like you've done some stuff, you really made a difference in the world, you got some sense of peace and wisdom about you. How many of you want a high-performing life? It would be weird if you didn't raise your hand. Is that right? If you didn't raise your hand, I'm not sure what to think about it, seriously. But this type of internal work, would you agree that this work requires risk-taking? Yeah, right? It requires getting up on the edge, because it's on the edge. What edge are we talking about, by the way? Emotional edge. That's all. There's no mental edge. There isn't a mental edge. There is a physical edge, physical capacity. The mental edge, if you will, the mental capacity is duration of focus. That's what that is. But what we're really talking about is underneath the surface is that edge, that emotional edge between vulnerability and courage. And in that space is where risk lives. And it's getting up on that space on a regular basis to learn who you are, what you're really about, because that's where we get exposed. And so there is a basic model that most humans need to operate from, either approach success or avoid failure. You know the answer, correct? Right? Approach success. Oh, yeah, right. And you're listening right now saying, yeah, that's who I am. I approach success. Only that examination from within will allow you to really take a good look at that, if that is how you are living your life. But what this internal map does, asking the hard questions in life, what it does, it'll set up your mission for you. Okay? So what is a mission? It's like how you dedicate your days, your minutes. The philosophy of the great men and women across the planet, we know their philosophies. We know Jesus' philosophy, Buddha's, Gandhi's, Mother Teresa's, Helen Keller. We know their philosophies because they were clear about lining up their thoughts, their words, and their actions across any condition. Same true is with a mission. What are you about? What are you dedicating your time toward? Here's mine. I want to help people live in the present moment more often. That's it. That's what I'm dedicating my life efforts to help people live in the present moment more often. How? How can we do that? Simply by organizing their inner life and training their mind. So if that's how I'm going to set it up, I need a working laboratory. I need places to understand. And so now I'm getting into the biz dev part of this, right? This is still craft refinement, but now I'm getting into like, how can I really do this? Because if I want to do this with my family members, that's one thing. But if I want to do it like at scale with as many people as possible, then we need to figure out some systems. So I need projects and people that are on the edge, on the frontier, to really understand how those experiences work. Then I need to figure out a mechanism to do it at scale. And this is the business, this is our logo, Compete to Create, with head coach Pete Carroll and myself. And that logo actually has a design behind it, and you see the colors. In the middle of our logo is, it's not in this picture, but there's a self-discovery mechanism. The 4 components of self-discovery live in there. We teach people that. This dark blue area on the outside are mental skills: calm, confidence, focus, and trust of self. We're calling those mental skills. Some of you might agree, some of you might disagree. This is our working model, right? And then this light blue is psychological framework, helping people understand how they make sense of themselves, explain events in the world, and create a framework that is strong and nimble at the same time. And then this red is the systems of recovery. And then the thing that binds the whole thing together is mindfulness. So we have 5 factors: self-discovery, mental skills, psychological framework, recovery, and mindfulness. That's it. It's not very, very complicated there. So we built an ecosystem where people can do it in person, 8-hour training, or we can do it as an 8-week online course. So now we've got a model to potentially do it at scale. Then how do we reach more people with the stuff that we hold and understand? Let's celebrate. Let's keep learning, and then amplify the genius of others. That's Finding Mastery. And I would love if you would join the Finding Mastery tribe. There are thousands and thousands of you in there supporting and challenging each other to be their very best. I just saw a post today where in the tribe, it's all free, this is a community builder, is that somebody posted a passion project that they have, and they didn't ask for money, but they needed some money to get it off, and another random person in the tribe that they've never met funded it. That's the community I want to be part of. Isn't that great? And then we get to the next step is the stuff that we're doing. This model, Finding Mastery, we needed a place to do good research. So Coach Carroll, he's a legend at USC, right? So Coach Carroll, Dave Belasco, and myself created or co-created the Performance Science Institute out in the School of Business, Marshall School of Business. And the idea is to study what we're doing in those business frames and other projects and make sense to give those insights, those themes, those streams, those applied insights to the business folks and then across scale outside of the university. And so we took the first, I'm not a, what's the type of scientist that does the work in the lab? That's not me, but I love it. There's a name, right? So I was about, 50 interviews in on Finding Mastery. And those of you who are not familiar with Finding Mastery podcast, it is a rich conversation, at least to me, exploring how the extraordinaries organize their life, their inner life. And so we're trying to get to a place where people can understand, people that are listening can also apply those same types of approaches. Okay. So about 50 interviews in, we're at over 200 now, about 50 interviews in, I'm overwhelmed with it. It's like another great gem, another insight. Wow, look at that, that's unbelievable. And I started to lose track. And as I lost track, Performance Science Institute with Ben Holbert, is Ben here? Yeah, so Ben, stand up Ben. I'll give a little love for Ben, because what Ben has done is an amazing piece of work. So Ben and his team took the Finding Mastery interviews and they ran them through what's LSA, come on, what is it, Ben? Latent semantic analysis. Thank you, Ben. And and that's a very complicated process that was new to me. So here's what they've done. They took the Finding Mastery text interviews, we transcribed them all, and then we pushed them through an LSA, and then what they've done is they've created this space where that stuff can live. And then they take principles that we want to measure those transcripts against. Combine that to understand what are the themes, what are the streams. So we've got 100 folks into the LSA at this point. What are those 100 folks saying across that is similar and what is different, what stands out? And maybe we're going to find a best practice, a set of best practices that from this very special group. Now these interviews are biased. They're all biased by me. And because I'm not a tabula rasa, I'm in it, I'm excited, I'm nodding my head. I'm looking kind of weirdly eyed when people are saying something I don't understand. So it's completely biased in there. They know it, they know that they're being recorded and amplified. I understand the biases, but words are important. Words matter. The words that you choose to yourself, this is what we teach, right? The words that you choose to speak to yourself and the words that you share with others, they matter. Of all the words in the English language, these men and women are sharing words. So Ben and his team are making sense of what are the words, what are the streams of words. First pass, super easy pass. One question I ask on a regular basis is, it all comes down to, this is trying to get to like a philosophy. If they had to boil it down, what is their philosophy? So this is just a nice little wordle to take a look at. The 100 plus extraordinaries, this is the most important words. Love, lived, life, time. So that gives you kind of a little pass, but we'll go farther than that. We go much deeper. So we measure what they're saying, the words they're using, the phrases they're using on the science of purpose. And this room will understand the science of purpose has 3 components. Personal meaning, something's bigger than you, and it's down the road. It's goal-oriented. The 3 components of science, the science of purpose. And so we took a look at those 3 against all the words that they used. And then we matched it with flow state, if you will, but it's called being absorbed in the task at hand. So we're taking all their language, pushing it through a filter, matching against the 3 variables of purpose, and then seeing if that has any type of impact with being absorbed. Is this a good project? Or is it, I'm the only one? I love this. I'm so excited about this. And so here's what we found. And Ben can explain this much better than I. So we've got the 3 variables, personal meaning, this is about purpose, something's bigger than you, and goal orientation. And what we find is that, look at the relationships are really strong and significant on every factor. But so personal meaning and bigger than you, look at that 0.73 relationship. Okay, that makes sense, doesn't it? If something matters to you and it's bigger than you, there's a high correlation there. But check out the relationship between bigger than you and bravery and absorption. There's a significant relationship between those 3. Okay, so now let's start at personal meaning. Look at that, 0.32 on relationship here between personal meaning and absorption. But look at goal orientation. Look how that just jumps out. A minus. What does that mean? That means the people that are goal-oriented are not being absorbed as much. Those people in our study reported that when they're high in goal orientation, they are less likely to be completely absorbed in the task at hand. Isn't that a cool finding? So when we're doing goal setting, remember there's something here. That the extraordinaries are saying, when I'm too goal-focused, I'm not getting in the thing. So there's a practice that you might be able to take from this, is that when you're asking your athletes that you work with for goals, prior to a match maybe, what type of goals are you asking? Good science would say, hey, ask goals that they're in control of, to help them with that kind of volitional, efficacious way of being. But maybe that is actually pulling them away. So explore with us. We don't know where to take it yet, but we're going to keep figuring it out. We're going to keep asking new questions in the Finding Mastery podcast. So here's just a basic quick overview of this. Purpose is a catalyst. We see the relationships between absorption, flow state, the most optimal state a human can be in. There is a relationship between purpose and absorption. And particularly important for high achievers, for identity cohesion, and the freedom to take risks and to be absorbed in the present moment. Purpose helps that. Isn't that great? So maybe we need to all go upstream. And we all go upstream in our personal lives to help better understand what is our purpose. What is our mission? Maybe we'll find flow state more often. Maybe we'll find that our absorption and our ability to flourish in life is enhanced. And when we do that, maybe we're able to do that for the people that we work with. My hope for this conversation is that we're going to get to some really good questions in a few minutes. The harder the question, the better it is. We'll get to something right on the edge. But my hope is that you will use the external map that I shared that has no value to you, and you'll explore your internal map in a world-class way. It will inform your mission, authentically inform your mission. And here's the beauty of that. When you do this work, nobody can take it away from you. Ever. It's yours. It's a very powerful place to be as a human. when nobody can take it away from you. In some circles, it becomes dangerous. So then the next piece is that as you are on your path of mastery of craft and mastery of self, that you're mission-minded and your map is authentically yours. And I want to say thank you for your time, and I want to give you one quick little moment. Earlier we talked about getting after it in life. Would anyone like to come up and see how their mind works under pressure for a moment? Okay, stop. Keep your hand up. Okay, so we have, that I can see, we have 8 people. So out of the plus 1,000 people, 8 of you raised your hand and said, yeah. I want to see how my mind works. What the fuck just happened to the rest of you? 40 minutes ago, you're like, yeah, I want to live an amazing life. Yeah, risk is part of it. I got my purpose down, mission. What is Mike talking about? Where did you just go? You sat on your hands. My hope is that you will feel pain right now. Because pain is the reason people change. Bold statement. Pain is the reason people change. Uncomfortableness is how we grow. So my hope is that you'll leave here tonight and you'll say, son of a, what am I doing with my life? I had an opportunity, but why didn't you come up? Why didn't you want to come up? Well, here's what's happening now as you're telling yourself a story. You're creating reasons. Our minds are slippery and they're incredible. And that story is likely keeping you small, like, he didn't give enough information. Who wants to see how their mind works, right? That's not enough information. Maybe you're telling yourself another story, which is, I always put my hand up. I want to give somebody else a chance. Really? Maybe you don't know that if you have permission to go for it. Maybe you don't know if you have permission to get on the edge, to let it rip, to be weird, to be out there, to explore, to authentically and truly explore. One of the great fears in our modern times is not the saber-toothed tiger. In our country, across the planet, there are dangerous men and women in the world, but the most crippling fear is the fear of people's opinions. You just felt it. You just had it. And now you're going to make a story. This is how complicated humans are. You're going to make a story about why that's the case. My sincere hope is that it stirs something up in you where you can recognize, I need to figure some shit out in my life. What am I talking about? Go back and doing the internal work, like that map work. Those of you who raised your hand, you'll sleep well. It's a really cool moment for you. Nice job. Nice job. So with that, I want to lastly say thank you again for your time, your attention, the graciousness for being here today and including me in the mission of this organization. And I hope that there's maybe something that is jostled in you a bit. And if you want to be part of the mission that we're building at Compete to Create, please let us know. We are looking for we only hire Olympians and sports psychologists. That's all we're hiring. And so we want to build a community of people that are understanding the richness of the science and partnering with people that are applying it. And we have a real win when both of them have command of each other's discipline. So if that fits, if this is inspiring to you, please let us know. We would love to meet you and to continue maybe to amplify this mission of helping people live in the present moment more often. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so grab the mic. Let's ask some questions. The more intense conversations or questions, the better. So let's get right up on the edge of it. I'm not going to pretend to have any of the answers, but we'll see some, where we can go with it. Get right up in there.
You really got it right. Okay. My question is about your work with organizations. You gave the example of Microsoft.
Can you say it louder so I can hear you?
Sure. In your work with organizations, and you gave the example of Microsoft, when you are interacting with them. So you talked about some of the leaders in that organization who are very passionate about the mission that you and Coach Carroll were introducing. Do you find that that passion for the culture trickles down to everyone in the organization, or does the work to maybe convince people of the power of your movement come from you? Does it come from the organizational leaders? What's that experience like?
It's a good question. It's a thoughtful question, like how do you create something in an environment? The first thing is you got to be about it and live it and be consistent, because people are watching and they're going to chin check you, they're going to check. And if you're not able to have that consistency when it's hard to be so, then you lose it. The mission's up for grabs and the whole thing falls apart. But nobody does it alone. And so there's folks that need to be bought in that are highly skilled and have high impact in the organization, and then it trickles through. My understanding is that when we're fatigued, when we're tired, when we're agitated, when we're under-recovered and overtrained, it's really hard to live with passion. And so our work is to help people get that thing kind of right, to have great recovery systems and to have incredible ways to organize their inner life so that they can open up and live in that free way. So it's a multifaceted, complicated approach. And I think maybe I touched on a few of them for you there. So yeah, good question. Thank you. Yes?
Hello. Love the podcast.
Oh, yeah. Me too. Okay, say it loud so we can hear you.
So you often speak about the idea or...
Say it louder so we can hear it, please. Yeah, get right up in there.
On the podcast, you often speak about the importance of being authentic and living your life authentically. I was wondering how you can reconcile some athletes having alter egos with that idea. So alter egos with the idea of authenticity.
Cool question. Yeah, really cool question. I think anytime we're faking something that we're going to expose that there's a bit of hollowness to it. I'm not a fan of it. I've seen it work. I've played with it myself earlier in my career where it's like, okay, so how do we get to a place where they're really struggling? Is there a way that they can put on an alter ego to be their hero, so to speak? And I don't know, I think it's a temporary patch that we're playing with fire in some respects. I have seen it work, so I personally don't appreciate the approach, but at the same time, I have seen it work. Yeah, cool question. Thank you. Yes?
Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
So in your experiences, a lot of these people or organizations that you have worked with have been very willing and very open to changing their mind and working on their mind and their mental health. What experiences have you had when a person or an organization has been a little bit more willful and not wanting to change or feeling that they don't need to change?
That's a cool question. My first job in pro sports, it was like a kind of a patchwork piece where the GM and coach weren't agreeing. The GM really wanted some sports psych in there, and the coach didn't really want it. And it ended up it never really worked. And so one of the reasons I was compelled to work with the Seattle Seahawks is because those of influence really wanted it. And so it doesn't mean don't take a job, but it's like part of being a great surgeon is if you've got the technical skills, that you also select the patients that are going to respond well to your approach. And so that's why there's screenings involved. Same goes for us as well. And the signal-to-noise ratio is an engineering term, and that is also available in psychology. When there's lots of noise in the organization, it is really hard to help people get to the signal. So there is some sort of us checking them out as well. I mentioned earlier that the gratitude I have for Karch Karai and the work that we got to spend together, and the signal is really strong with Karch, and I hope that you'll be able to be here tomorrow to learn from him. And the signal is grounded on a daily approach to help people be their very best. And so when you get like that 1-in-1, it's far greater than 2. And so that's how I respond.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, so I was just curious, the model you showed us that had a negative relationship with goal orientation and absorption, Did you guys measure what type of goal orientation it was? Was it more development focused or outcome focused or both?
That would be a better question for Ben.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Make sure we get Ben's email out because there'll be some good ones. Yes.
Hi. So in your exploration of mastery and throughout your career in speaking with all of these high performers, what has been unexpected that you've learned?
What's been unexpected?
Yeah.
There's no kind of cookie cutter approach. There's no treadmill that you jump on to become a high performer. I think some of the things that are themes other than what we're actually finding from a research perspective for my community is there's a deep commitment to the truth for most of them. You know, and we can never get away from genetics. Genetics and hard work together, that old adage is really important. But those that are just trying to get over or get by eventually run a short course. And the longevity of true mastery of craft and self and requires a deep commitment, a fundamental commitment to the truth and a fundamental orientation of your life. There's no shortcuts about it. And so those are two things that on the forefront for me, for those men and women that are doing it. And the higher the stakes, the greater the commitment to the truth. Yeah, thank you.
Wait, sorry, can you define truth quickly?
Say it.
Like commitment to the truth. Do you mean
Say it again, please.
define commitment to the truth?
Oh, can I define commitment to truth? Is that of Latin origin? Yeah, truth. It's getting to the realness of it. Like, why did that ball not come off my hand right? Like, what happened here? Like, what happens when I press this button on a free fall and it's not working? Like, getting to the truth of why am I scared? What is it about? How do I respond to people when it's not going the right way? Like, fundamentally getting down to the essence of what makes me, and how I interface with other people, and what I need to do to not BS myself, but to have the standard on a regular basis that is going to allow me to artistically express myself. So that's like getting to the base of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Thank you. That was very, very thought-provoking. So my question is about your work with Pete Carroll. Could you tell us what the number one thing that you've learned from him, and tell us a little bit more about how he lives his day-to-day life?
Yeah, one of the things I asked Coach Carroll when we were first working together is what is the hardest part of his job? And to answer your question, I think his response says it beautifully, is that the hardest part of his job is saying the same thing in different ways every day. So the principles are clear, and figuring out creative ways to capture and see it from a new perspective, that I've learned the importance of consistency and staying true to what's true. And so if I were to answer that with the last comment about truth, that there is truth with a small t and truth with a tall t, you know, and so the consistency is where I would go.
Okay, we have time for one more question.
One more question. Make it great. You guys want to fight for it? Yeah? We're up.
Hi, Michael. You mentioned that it is very important for you to make people feel in the present moment as much as they can. And being in the present moment requires that, you know, the absence of our egos, basically. What do you use, which techniques do you use in yourself, for yourself, to tame your ego, to not get, you know, in between of the success of your practice?
So if I get to the simplicity of that, what I heard was helping people live in the present moment is important. How do I do it myself? What are the techniques that I use to do that? Fair?
For yourself.
For myself, yeah. It is basically the model that we created with Compete to Create. There's a relentless self-discovery process. There is a rich commitment to mindfulness on a regular basis. I'm continually investing in refining and building the mental skills to allow myself to adjust eloquently. And I'm working in a world-class way, you know, to recover and like sleep well and eating well and moving well. And so I'm buying into the application of all of those on a regular basis. Is it perfect? No, 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 not by any means. But I'm investing double down, triple down. I'm investing in the stock that I understand, and it is the systems to help people flourish. I'm gonna buy the same stock. And so I don't know another way to do it, but I would say that mindfulness and self-discovery are kind of the big boulders that I play with along with recovery.
Thank you.
Yeah, cool, thank you. Again, thank you guys. Appreciate your time.